Hey
Okay.
friends, I am Keisha Ellingson, and if you are new to me, let me introduce myself. I help moms or women who are relocating and moving create friendships and connections wherever they are. Because friendships can be created no matter what place you live in. And so that's what I help well with. So today we're going to jump into a conversation about loneliness. Because oftentimes when we find ourselves in new situations in life, whether we move or not, loneliness is something that we can feel deep down, but it's not something that we talk about a lot. So we're going to talk about loneliness and finding ourselves and creating friendships. And I'm here with my friend Kari today. Kari, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Carrie Lynn, and I am excited to be here with Keisha. We are um, talking about a difficult subject for me, and I am a former high school speech, theater, and English teacher, and also a corporate trainer working with curriculum and professional development for school districts. And that put me on the road a lot of different new places, lots of new people, lots of loneliness on that road. But that's a little bit about me and why I'm here today to talk a little bit about that with Keisha.
Awesome. So, what has loneliness looked like for you?
Well, multifaceted, I think. I think loneliness is a little bit different for everyone. And it can come in so many shapes and sizes. I noticed in my loneliness, I dealt with a little bit of anxiety and depression along with that. I think the loneliness can pull in that depression. I think in that depression, a little bit of anxiety, not knowing what to do. And in my line of work, I moved a couple of different times and I also traveled quite a bit. Anxiety of not knowing where I was headed exactly, never been there before. And always on my own. So I had to constantly be aware, constantly paying attention, constantly and knowing my surroundings and in being prepared for unexpected things. It's a little stressful, I think, in that respect. And when there's nobody there to talk to, that loneliness kind of sets in and it can create some self-doubt and some uh, lack of self-confidence. Am I doing this right? I'm in the right place. Did I get everything? Did I remember everything? Uh, uh,
Yeah.
so many things running there through my head, just all those memories coming back.
hmm Yeah, you brought up a good point that um, sometimes when we're deep in loneliness, it's like we don't have a board, someone to talk about our questions or our fears, or to just bring up things that we're thinking about too.
Yes, absolutely. That is so true. I think too, I think because of that, loneliness can make us, what's the word I'm looking for? Feel like when we get in that spot and it gets dark for us, that nobody else is dealing with this same feeling. So nobody understands. So therefore, there's nobody to really talk to. Even if we know we could call up a girlfriend who maybe lives a couple hours away, or somebody, a family member, maybe you're close to your mom or a sister or a brother, and just talk with them to help dispel that loneliness. But sometimes that loneliness can get dark and ugly, talking to us in our heads that nobody else is going to get this. Nobody else understands what you're dealing with right now, or the changes you've had to make, or the new places that you're in, and how to deal with that. And so we don't. And we then end up just staying in that little space by ourselves. I think that just compounds the loneliness.
Yeah, yeah, it makes it seem bigger
Hmm.
and more like a scarier place to be in. Yeah,
Yes.
so we
Yeah.
often feel alone. Yeah. Could you share some more of your story of how you've walked through loneliness?
Um, okay, where's a good place to start? I don't think I ever thought about being lonely until I was probably early 30s. I had gone to college, I had gotten a career, I was teaching, I was busy going all the time, and I was very adventurous and had lots of friends and was doing a lot of things. But in that decade of your 20s up to that 30s, depending on, and in my personal story, because I moved a couple of times and I realized that as the friends that I had always been connected through with high school and college went different directions. Some got married, some moved away. I lost a couple to death unexpectedly. That was very hard. One was a very, very close friend of mine, and it was earth-shattering to lose her. And that set some loneliness in, because she wasn't there to talk to anymore. And because she and I shared experiences that nobody else had. So I didn't have anyone else to share that with. But it was weird to wake up one day and realize how many relationships that I had depended on in the past were suddenly gone. Partly because I had gone my own path and had not communicated as well and had moved and had tried new things. The longer that went, I discovered that I had to be more conscious about what I was doing and where I was to find things to be involved in or to seek out, because sitting in my house, nobody was going to come hunt me down, say, hey,
Yeah.
my friend.
Yeah.
um, and at the same time that I was dealing through that loneliness, I'd had some traumatic experiences in my family, my personal life, that put me in a deep depression. So that depression with that loneliness just kind of compounded. So
Mm.
that was a struggle there for me for several years. And I did initially I tried counseling, I tried medication, and all these things seemed like, okay, you come here, tell us what you need, and we'll see if we can't make up something to give to you and send you on your way and fix it. And good luck. And
Right.
turn it off, then turn it on, turn it off, and then turn it on. And I didn't do well with that. I can't really say there was any one thing that made me, I think it was, I think it was, I had a couple of friends that did check on me from time to time. It's so hard to encapsulate a lifetime of some of these experiences that innately I knew that being lonely and allowing the depression, anxiety to bother me was something I could control, but I had to decide to. And when that kind of clicked on for me, did it make it 100% easier? No. I had to find what I was going to do to make it different. So I sat down and started thinking back over my experiences about how or what was I really interested in. I hit a lull in my life that I had achieved several of my goals. I had was looking for what could come next, or what did I used to like to do that I quit doing, and running came up, and I joined it was actually the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society that I got connected to. And I used to run as a kid in elementary school. I thought that was the funnest thing in the world, but I never really did it like within high school or college and track or anything like that. But I thought, oh, I wonder if I could do that again. And that's where I started making some connections in a new place that I was, and it spurred on all kinds of stuff.
Oh, fun. So how did what did those connections look like? Where did you meet those people?
The first connection was that I had to shut my brain off of the fear of, I'm walking in somewhere I've never been before. I don't know anybody at all. I have no connections whatsoever, nobody to go with me. And I've got to walk in there and be brave enough to say, hello, my name is Kari, and I want to do this. So what I tried to do was focus on the fact that I am going to go see if I can do this again, the running part, if I can get myself in shape and go do this long distance running. So that's what carried me through the getting past the scared to reach out to somebody else. And that the great thing that really helped was that they assigned you a mentor. So you were
Oh,
part
nice.
of a smaller group and you had a one-on-one relationship with someone who asked you questions about who are you, where have you been, what have you done, and getting to know you. And that was the impetus, that was the turning point. I don't know what the right word is for that to describe what I'm trying to describe, but it pulled me in, and little by little, without me even being aware of it, started making these different connections. And now, from that was 20 years ago that happened, that I started that. One of the girls that I met, she and I are still best of friends. She took pictures at my wedding, and we still communicate weekly, even though we don't
Oh,
live in the same country and same state anymore.
mhm. That's awesome. And that whole shift in your life took place because you chose to have a perspective switch of like, you're not going to focus on that you don't know anybody, and you have to have courage. You're going to focus on, I'm going to go and enjoy running. And the willingness to step into that new situation really opened up a whole opportunity for you to connect.
Yes, and really, I have to say that it really is a mindset. You dealing with loneliness, depression, anxiety, any of those negative things that really pull you down and keep you isolated from other people can be overcome with a mindset. And it's different things for different people, and it's a different timing for different people. And I know I had some other supports, but they were very peripheral and not with me in the moment, in that location at that time. I was very much, for the first time, completely alone in this spot by myself in a new place, new area, new job, new everything. And yeah, it was a decision to, I don't want to always be at this point. I don't always want to feel like this. Did it make it go away? No. Did it make it easier to deal with? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you say that you made that decision that I don't like want to always be alone, um, was there something that prompted your decision?
Um, I think at that particular time, the fact that I had made such a huge shift, without getting into too much detail, um, I had made a major move from South Texas on the Gulf Coast all the way to the mountains of Colorado.
Oh,
And
wow.
um, Colorado to me had always been that this is where we go on family vacation for 2 weeks every year as a family. And that's all you do in Colorado. Colorado is for vacations. I made this move because of the person I had been involved with at the time was a native of Colorado, but we were both down in South Texas. And we were going to be leaving there, and all this stuff happened all at once. I decided, okay, I'd go get set up at Colorado because he was going to come back there. We were going to continue the relationship. I moved 6 months ahead of time, and within that 6 months, he writes me literally a Dear Jane letter card
Oh,
and says, our communication is hurting my new relationship. And I'm like, what?
what?
Yeah, so that's where it went. The loneliness really, that's when it hit. And I sat there in a brand new town I'd never lived in before, in a state that though I loved, I didn't know how to even comprehend that this is where I could actually live. This was a vacation spot, but here I am. And that, I think that little part, and noticing something about myself physically and the difference from the Gulf to the high altitude, I am definitely not a coastal girl. Give me a beach for the week, but I'd much rather live in the mountains. And I physically feel better. I think that helped because I was in a bad spot, health-wise and relationship-wise and all this other stuff. And moving away, thinking I was helping my relationship was it actually did because it was better that he left, but that made that loneliness very intense and something I hadn't dealt with in a long time because I was all of a sudden he was not coming to join me. That was it. And after probably 6 months after that, landing in Colorado, that's when it was driving me nuts that I didn't want to be in that low spot, that loneliness, that I had to find something. And I was looking, I'd gone to church. Yeah, great place to be, but that wasn't helping. I looked for some other different activities. And then finally I get in the mail this thing about Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and that running thing hit in my head. And I don't know, I look back and it's got to be, it's all God driven and planned. And he brought it to me. He knew what I needed and I listened. And that's another, I think, important piece. You need to listen, stop and listen and take some stock in who you are and what you like and what you want and find, because those things will appear when you start looking.
Yeah. When you start concentrating on what you want instead of where you're at.
Yeah, you've got to get outside yourself, really.
Yeah. And also outside your head too.
Yes. Yeah.
To stop those thoughts. Yeah. Yeah. So what has helped you walk through like all of these hard seasons?
I would say ultimately has been my faith in Jesus and my relationship. Was it always there? Was it always good? No. That point in my life that I just described is probably where it was pretty close to rock bottom. And that was just not where I had a good focus, but there was, from a foundation of my childhood, I think was still in the back of my head. The fact that this was a spot I hadn't been in before, so I knew what it was like to not be lonely, to be involved, to have those friends around me, that I wanted that back. The other part was because I was at this point and being alone, that I had to spend time with myself. And I think spending time with myself, rediscovering my Bible on a shelf, and gosh, I can't even encapsulate it's just a few words, all the little bitty details I think that occurred at different times that would pop into my head, or that I would see on a TV commercial, or that I would hear from a friend or something. All these different things kept reminding me that where you're at in this season is not permanent, and it doesn't have to be permanent, and it's going to only last as long as you decide it's going to last. And those things all together are what helped me. I would say, though, that if you find yourself in this very lonely spot, everything is new because either you physically moved, or people have moved out of your life for whatever reason or another, that you need to find time to sit still and listen, and not listen to those negative things in your head that say you can't do this, you aren't this, or you're just, all those negative things. You got to push that out, and you've got to listen to the other parts. What did you do before? What did you used to love to do that you aren't doing anymore? What is it that maybe a hobby has stuck with you, or a new adventure, and to be thinking about what those opportunities could be? Because once you sit long enough with yourself and start hearing some of those things, I believe that there can be a spur on out of that to connect to a group of people to get rid of that loneliness.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sometimes in the quietness of loneliness, like even though we would not choose to be in that spot where there's no other people speaking into our lives, it's just us. sometimes it's a place to discover who we really are, like in our core.
I completely agree. And I actually feel like looking back over the different experiences or times in my life, that God had me in those places of loneliness for me to sit still and to listen. Sometimes I didn't listen very good. And it took a while, and it took several cycles of it. Did I want to go through that? No. But because I wasn't really listening the first time is why I think some of it came back around. I think now, even though I definitely experienced that loneliness and trying to figure out what to do, I feel a combination of things of my faith in God is stronger. I have routines that I have built for myself. I have shifted gears in a hard way of going after some different dreams. Those things in combination have kept that loneliness at bay, and I don't feel that like I used to.
Yeah. And you also have the tools, like you've been through it, you have the tools to walk out of that season faster or keep it at bay. Yeah. So as to talk about like God providing for you and all of these little things, like even just getting that little flyer in the mail, it's also very similar to my story. Like when I was deep in loneliness, like looking back now, I can see all the ways that God provided and all the ways that he is faithful, even in the hard times.
Yes.
And the strength that I had to go through it that I didn't know I had. Do you feel like that's similar to that you found that you had an inner strength to walk through that hard season, even though you weren't currently aware of it?
Oh, absolutely. You can see anything in hindsight. I didn't want to be there, but I didn't feel like I was going to survive it. And really because I feel like that I wasn't going to survive it because I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't have any kinds of, like you were saying, processes or things in place. And I had to figure out what those were. I think what makes a big difference is getting to that point of deciding that you're going to figure it out. I think there's a lot of people that don't, and they stay stuck in that cycle because either they don't know that they can or they don't want to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an excellent point. Sometimes we can get caught up in listening to our negative self-talk and that they don't understand. This is how it is. This is how it's going to be. You don't know anybody here. Like just listening to this self-talk replay over and over again, that we don't really make the choice. And sometimes we're not aware of that we can make that choice, but it's a powerful choice once we do make it.
Yeah, I think you hit it right there on the head, that it's figuring out that we have the possibility or the capability of making a choice and making a choice to make things different, that we are only as stuck as we allow ourselves to be. And that it is finding what it takes to get yourself to shift.
Yeah. So if you could give a word of encouragement to anyone who finds themselves in this situation or in walking through loneliness, what would it be?
I think the number one thing is, whether you have a faith background or not, I would encourage you to find your Bible or go to the bookstore and get yourself one if you don't, and read Psalms. The Psalms can really speak to a person in loneliness because the writer of Psalms understood that completely without a shadow of a doubt. And he found that he turned that, was able to turn that focus to God to help pull him out of that. The other thing that goes in connection with that is service. When I found a way to go be a part or do something for somebody else, and as I made those connections through that running group, it expanded in other places because I felt good and was making connections there. I started noticing that I was showing up differently than at my church where I was going, and some other places, and at work. And so those different those people started becoming humans to me and having those communications. And was I would find ways to ask questions, to talk to others, and then try to do things in service. And maybe you don't have any of that and you just need to go down to a local food bank or a soup kitchen and serve from something like that, that when you're doing it for other people, it pulls you out. So I would say those are my two big things. Finding the Psalms and start reading that. Read a little bit every day, just 5, maybe 10, 5 of the Psalms or 10, and read through it. A friend of mine reads through the Psalms every month, start to finish. And he's got some pretty incredible insights. And then going out in service to other people. Because basically, when I realized that Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, I was connected to running and running a marathon, but it was raising money in service for research. So a lot of connections there, but those are my two.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. So if the people listening would like to connect with you, where can they find you on social media?
Okay, great. On Facebook, you can find me under Kari Lynn, Kari, and second name Lynn, Lyn. And then I have a Facebook group if you'd like to join in with me in our discussions. It's called Midlife Train, Where's the Exit? And even though maybe you're not there at midlife or consider yourself at midlife, join us anyway. We could always use your experience and come join the conversation and ask questions, whatever you'd like to do. On Instagram, you can find me under Kari Lynn F. Karilyn F as in Frank, and I'm on Instagram there. Now I do have a website, it's just not up. Well, I had to pull it back down. It's got some redesigning it's going through, so it'll be up soon again, and post maybe next to this video when that website's ready to go.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for coming on and having this conversation with me. It was a wonderful time to hear your story and your advice.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed visiting with you.